Meet your mayor and city council.
Mayor Jason Beck was elected to a four-year term in November 2022 and was sworn into office in January 2023. Mayor Beck is a Marine Corps veteran and is the founder and CEO of Tier Tactical, a Peoria-based business that provides body armor and tactical gear to military and first responders worldwide. His focus is on growing economic development citywide, strengthening public safety, and securing Peoria's water future and infrastructure. He's a husband and father to six boys. Vice Mayor Jennifer Crawford was elected to represent the Acacia District in November 2022. She has more than 30 years of business and marketing experience in the private sector. With an emphasis in sales and management, she's operated small businesses, a nonprofit organization, and is currently self-employed as a consultant. With downtown Peoria within her district, she's passionate about the revitalization of this area. Her family has lived in Peoria since 2004, with children attending Zuni Hills Elementary School and graduating from Liberty and Sunrise Mountain High Schools. Councilmember Rick Stokes was elected to represent the Ironwood District in November of 2024. His career began in the United States Air Force, where he served as a telecom engineer from 1986 to 1995. Transitioning into civilian life, he worked as a network engineer and IT manager, and later co-founded his own IT consulting firm. He's been married for 27 years and has a passion for cycling, literature, and triathlons. The council member is an accomplished jazz saxophone player, serving in several orchestras, including Arizona Winds Orchestra and the Forever Young Big Band. Councilmember Matt Bullock was elected to represent the Mesquite District in November 2024. He previously served as the president of the Peoria School District Governing Board. He started his first technology company after graduating from the U of A and has been an entrepreneur ever since. Bullock now owns a data protection and cybersecurity company, protecting data for companies across the United States. He's married with 6 children and soon to be 6 grandchildren. His hobbies include improv, comedy, and theater stage performances, professional speaking, golf, and cooking. Mayor Pro Tem Michael Finn was elected to represent the Palo Verde District in 2014 and re-elected in 2018 and again in 2022. As a former chief financial officer for the Peoria Unified School District, Finn was responsible for making sound fiscal policies that contributed to the district's success. He also brings over 20 years of additional leadership experience from his time with United Parcel Service and U.S. Airways. His family has lived in Peoria for more than 2 decades and enjoys engaging with the community. Councilmember Danette Dunn was elected to represent the Pine District during a special election in August of 2019. She was re-elected for a second 4-year term in January 2023. Dunn is focused on transportation management and economic development growth for our city. She is the founder of an environmental consulting agency, which connects businesses with environmental stewardship, awareness, and social responsibility. She also served in government relations for Republic Services. Councilmember John Edwards was elected to represent the Willow District in November 2012 and re-elected in 2016, 2020, and 2024. He served as a program and project manager for a computer services firm for nearly 30 years. Edwards serves on a number of boards and committees, including the Maricopa Association of Governments Transportation Policy Committee, the Valley Metro Board of Directors, and the National League of Cities Community and Economic Development Committee. In previous years, he was involved with organizations including Westmark and Homeless Youth Connection. His family has lived in Peoria since 2001, and he believes in open communication and engaging with residents to keep them involved in important city decisions. The City Council meeting will begin shortly. Thank you for watching.
Meet your mayor and city council.
Mayor Jason Beck was elected to a 4-year term in November 2022 and was sworn into office in January 2023. Mayor Beck is a Marine Corps veteran and is the founder and CEO of Tier Tactical, a Peoria-based business that provides body armor and tactical gear to military and first responders worldwide. His focus is on growing economic development citywide, strengthening public safety, and securing Peoria's water future and infrastructure. He's a husband and father to 6 boys. Vice Mayor Jennifer Crawford was elected to represent the Acacia District in November 2022. She has more than 30 years of business and marketing experience in the private sector. With an emphasis in sales and management, she's operated small businesses, a nonprofit organization, and is currently self-employed as a consultant. With downtown Peoria within her district, she's passionate about the revitalization of this area. Her family has lived in Peoria since 2004, with children attending Zuni Hills Elementary School and graduating from Liberty and Sunrise Mountain High Schools. Councilmember Rick Stokes was elected to represent the Ironwood District in November of 2024. His career began in the United States Air Force, where he served as a telecom engineer from 1986 to 1995. Transitioning into civilian life, he worked as a network engineer and IT manager, and later co-founded his own IT consulting firm. He's been married for 27 years and has a passion for cycling, literature, and triathlons. The council member is an accomplished jazz saxophone player, serving in several orchestras, including Arizona Winds Orchestra and the Forever Young Big Band. Councilmember Matt Bullock was elected to represent the Mesquite District in November 2024. He previously served as the president of the Peoria School District Governing Board. He started his first technology company after graduating from the U of A and has been an entrepreneur ever since. Bullock now owns a data protection and cybersecurity company, protecting data for companies across the United States. He's married with 6 children and soon to be 6 grandchildren. His hobbies include improv, comedy, and theater stage performances, professional speaking, golf, and cooking. Mayor Pro Tem Michael Finn was elected to represent the Palo Verde District in 2014 and re-elected in 2018 and again in 2022. As a former chief financial officer for the Peoria Unified School District, Finn was responsible for making sound fiscal policies that contributed to the district's success. He also brings over 20 years of additional leadership experience from his time with United Parcel Service and U.S. Airways. His family has lived in Peoria for more than 2 decades and enjoys engaging with the community. Councilmember Danette Dunn was elected to represent the Pine District during a special election in August of 2019. She was re-elected for a second 4-year term in January 2023. Dunn is focused on transportation management and economic development growth for our city. She is the founder of an environmental consulting agency, which connects businesses with environmental stewardship, awareness, and social responsibility. She also served in government relations for Republic Services. Councilmember John Edwards was elected to represent the Willow District in November 2012 and re-elected in 2016, 2020, and 2024. He served as a program and project manager for a computer services firm for nearly 30 years. Edwards serves on a number of boards and committees, including the Maricopa Association of Governments Transportation Policy Committee, the Valley Metro Board of Directors, and the National League of Cities Community and Economic Development Committee. In previous years, he was involved with organizations including Westmark and Homeless Youth Connection. His family has lived in Peoria since 2001, and he believes in open communication and engaging with residents to keep them involved in important city decisions. The City Council meeting will begin shortly. Thank you for watching.
Meet your mayor and city council.
Mayor Jason Beck was elected to a 4-year term in November 2022 and was sworn into office in January 2023. Mayor Beck is a Marine Corps veteran and is the founder and CEO of Tier Tactical, a Peoria-based business that provides body armor and tactical gear to military and first responders worldwide. His focus is on growing economic development citywide, strengthening public safety, and securing Peoria's water future and infrastructure. He's a husband and father to 6 boys. Vice Mayor Jennifer Crawford was elected to represent the Acacia District in November 2022. She has more than 30 years of business and marketing experience in the private sector. With an emphasis in sales and management, she's operated small businesses, a nonprofit organization, and is currently self-employed as a consultant. With downtown Peoria within her district, she's passionate about the revitalization of this area. Her family has lived in Peoria since 2004, with children attending Zuni Hills Elementary School and graduating from Liberty and Sunrise Mountain High Schools. Councilmember Rick Stokes was elected to represent the Ironwood District in November of 2024. His career began in the United States Air Force, where he served as a telecom engineer from 1986 to 1995. Transitioning into civilian life, he worked as a network engineer and IT manager, and later co-founded his own IT consulting firm. He's been married for 27 years and has a passion for cycling, literature, and triathlons. The council member is an accomplished jazz saxophone player, serving in several orchestras, including Arizona Winds Orchestra and the Forever Young Big Band. Councilmember Matt Bullock was elected to represent the Mesquite District in November 2024. He previously served as the president of the Peoria School District Governing Board. He started his first technology company after graduating from the U of A and has been an entrepreneur ever since. Bullock now owns a data protection and cybersecurity company, protecting data for companies across the United States. He's married with 6 children and soon to be 6 grandchildren. His hobbies include improv, comedy, and theater stage performances, professional speaking, golf, and cooking. Mayor Pro Tem Michael Finn was elected to represent the Palo Verde District in 2014 and re-elected in 2018 and again in 2022. As a former chief financial officer for the Peoria Unified School District, Finn was responsible for making sound fiscal policies that contributed to the district's success. He also brings over 20 years of additional leadership experience from his time with United Parcel Service and U.S. Airways. His family has lived in Peoria for more than 2 decades and enjoys engaging with the community. Councilmember Danette Dunn was elected to represent the Pine District during a special election in August of 2019. She was re-elected for a second 4-year term in January 2023. Dunn is focused on transportation management and economic development growth for our city. She is the founder of an environmental consulting agency, which connects businesses with environmental stewardship, awareness, and social responsibility. She also served in government relations for Republic Services. Councilmember John Edwards was elected to represent the Willow District in November 2012 and re-elected in 2016, 2020, and 2024. He served as a program and project manager for a computer services firm for nearly 30 years. Edwards serves on a number of boards and committees, including the Maricopa Association of Governments Transportation Policy Committee, the Valley Metro Board of Directors, and the National League of Cities Community and Economic Development Committee. In previous years, he was involved with organizations including Westmark and Homeless Youth Connection. His family has lived in Peoria since 2001, and he believes in open communication and engaging with residents to keep them involved in important city decisions. The City Council meeting will begin shortly. Thank you for watching.
That's okay. It's all good. I hereby call the March 4th, 2025 study session to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Back,
Here.
Vice Mayor Crawford.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn.
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
Councilmember Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Bullock. You have a quorum.
Awesome, thank you. The first item on the agenda for today is the discussion of utility rate study. For that presentation, I will now turn it over to city staff.
Very good. Mayor, Council, Kevin Burke, Deputy City Manager, and responsible for finance within the cohorts of departments. Here this evening to talk about utility rate study and proposed rate changes. As you know, every year we go through a budget process. In that process, we're looking at both the revenue side of the equation as well as the expenditure side. A lot of focus gets done on the expenditure side, but an equal amount of attention really needs to be paid to the revenue side. And we also run 5 enterprise funds. These are essentially business assets, business elements of our municipal corporation that are fully self-sufficient. They run entirely on the revenues that they bring in. And so one of those, or several of those you'll see tonight, which is our water, wastewater, solid waste, and even our storm drainage are all enterprises that require a periodic review of the rates and the rate structures. So to have that periodic review, I've got some familiar and some not so familiar faces at the table here with me. To my right is Sean Kindle, our CFO. To his right is Peter Christensen, our Deputy Finance Director. And to his right is our consultant from FCS, Brooke Tasha, who has worked with us in previous years on this and is very familiar with our case. And so I will turn it over to Sean to talk about this year's rate study.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Mayor, Council. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the rate studies that we do for the utilities. Every 5 years or so, we try to go out and do a comprehensive rate study. So we'll create a model, we'll update the model as we bring rates to you. But about every 5 years, we want to take a deeper dive into the study, take a little bit closer look. There's several areas that we look at. So we'll start with reviewing the policies and the priorities of the city and make sure that our rate structure, our rate alignment is in line with those. We'll take a look at, we'll create a revenue requirement forecast. And what that basically means is we'll look at what it costs us to operate the utility going into the future, and that drives our revenue requirements. As Mr. Burke said, these are intended to be fully self-sustaining and fully cost recovery. So in order to develop that revenue requirement, we need to look at what our total costs are. We'll also do a cost of service analysis. So what this does is it breaks down the costs a little bit further to make sure that we're assigning the proper cost to the proper revenue streams and recovering the costs from the proper customers. And then finally, we'll look at the rate design and determine, is this the proper rate design to meet our goals to get our cost recovery, but also, as you'll see, we might do some incentives through the rate design. So what are the objectives of a rate study? First of all, cost recovery. We want to make sure that we are generating the revenues that we need to operate the utility, whichever it is, whether it's water, wastewater, or solid waste. We also want to look at revenue stability. So we want our rate design to be such that we have a consistent stream of revenue coming in, that it's not fluctuating wildly from year to year, but we have a good base of revenue that we can count on and that we can budget off of and plan off of in the future. And then we want to look at equity and conservation. So equity is, we want to be fair to all of the payers of this, all of the users of these utilities. We want them to pay their fair share, but we don't want them to be paying more than their fair share. So we want equity across the system. But we do have, particularly within the water rates, we do look at conservation, and we do have some incentives built into our water rates to try to incentivize people toward water conservation. And we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the rate structure itself. And then finally, what we want to look at is affordability. So we have a couple of different measures that we use. There's some standards on what rating agencies consider as affordable. We're well within those. But we also want to take a look and make sure that we're affordable in comparison to the other valley cities, to our peers around the valley, and keep our affordability levels. So I'm going to talk at a very high level about some of the cost drivers. If you do have questions about the operations or the capital, we do have our Water Services Director, David Burke, and our Public Works Director, Rhonda Humbles, behind us, so we can phone a friend because they know way more about that than I do. But I can talk at a very high level about what the drivers are behind our rates. So in the water and wastewater system, one driver that we have, operating and capital cost inflation. So we all know over the past couple of years, inflation's been pretty high. It's hit our water and wastewater operations as much as anybody else. They're very dependent on things like chemicals, electricity, labor costs, those types of things. As those costs go up, it costs more to operate those systems. So we have to take that into account. Water system redundancy. We've done a great job, and you guys have authorized us to do a great job in the past few years about really looking at, in particular, water redundancy from the standpoint of the Colorado River and possible shortfalls on the Colorado River. We've started doing well programs to be able to draw the water out of the ground if we can't get it through the Colorado system. But there are also other types of redundancy that we want to look at. So we need to have equipment in place and functionality in place that if there's a break in the system, if there's an outage in one part of the system, we're still able to bypass that and deliver water. So you need redundancy not only in water sources, but also in the ability to deliver that water. Plant expansions. As the city grows, we're going to have to expand our capability to treat wastewater, to provide water. That requires plant expansions. So we have to look forward and see what those are going to cost and be preparing ourselves for those now. And then finally, we have aging infrastructure. Peoria is still a fairly young city, but we're hitting the point, we're going to start running into the point where as Peoria started to grow, you were putting a lot of infrastructure into the ground. That infrastructure is getting older. It's going to be coming up for replacement. That's going to start costing more and more for the city. So we have to be aware of that and be watching that. We also have to watch the infrastructure at the plants. As the plants get older, there's going to be more replacement and maintenance costs involved with that. So those are drivers on the water and wastewater side. On the solid waste system side, the cost drivers, we all know you guys have approved the fleet shop replacement. That's underway right now. Solid waste is the biggest customer for our fleet shop, so they are bearing the biggest part of the cost of that. That will be passed on through the rates. Landfill costs. The city of Peoria does not have its own landfill. We are dependent on our partners that we have for landfill costs, but we're also kind of subject to what they're charging us for it. We don't really have a lot of control over that. Recycling costs. Recycling costs can be very cyclical. There are periods of time where recycled material is in demand. You're getting a good price for it. We're actually recovering our cost of recycling. But there's also periods of time where that demand for recycled material goes down. And when that happens, we have to subsidize those costs. It actually costs us money to do the recycling. So we have to build that into it. And then finally, fleet costs. The biggest part of solid waste in terms of costs is maintaining that fleet of vehicles that goes out and picks up the trash. There's a lot of planning that goes into that, a lot of maintenance that goes into that, and preparing for future growth in that as well. So those are the primary drivers of the cost. Our rate structure itself. So on the water side, our rate structure is such that we have a base charge that is charged to every customer, and it's kind of like you're connected to the system, this is what it costs you to be connected. So the average residential home is a 3/4 inch meter, that costs $21.24 per month. That cost goes up for larger meters. So as the meter gets larger, that cost of connection goes up. In addition to that base charge, we have a usage charge per gallon, and right now we have 4 tiers of usage. So we charge one rate for the first 4,000 gallons, another rate between 4,000 and 10,000 gallons, another rate between 10 and 20,000 gallons, and then a final rate for everything over 20,000. This is that conservation incentive that I was talking about. The rate goes up as you use more water, so it incentivizes customers to try to reduce their water usage. On the wastewater side, we also have a base meter charge. It happens to be $10.84 a month for a 3/4 inch meter. Again, as the meter size goes up, that base charge will increase. And then the usage charge on the wastewater side is based on your winter average. So we take the average usage between December and March. Average water usage between December and March. And the thought process behind that is those are your lowest water usage months. So it primarily is inside water use, is kind of the thought process behind that. Your inside water use is what goes down the drain and goes into the sewer system. So that's how we set your usage level. Once we have that average, it's set for the entire year. And then we charge you $2.36 per 1,000 gallons, I hope, on that. So it's $2.36. Huh? I don't want to talk acre feet, and I don't want to charge $2.36 per gallon.
There you go.
That would be harsh. So that's just set for the whole year. On the solid waste rate structure for residential solid waste, it's a flat fee for one trash can, one recycle can, and the ability to have 2 bulk trash pickups per year. And that flat fee right now is $23.55. Then we have additional fees. If you add additional containers that you want, there's additional fees for that. If you do special hauls, so if there's something special that you're doing, you're cleaning off a roof, whatever you're doing, a special haul, there's rates for those as well. But primarily solid waste is a flat fee. On the commercial side, the trash collection is based on your container size and the number of times that you have it picked up per week, or the number of collections that you have. On the recycling side of that is just by the number of collections that you have if the commercial are doing recycling on that. So that's our basic fee structure. I'm going to turn it over to Peter, and he's going to talk through where we landed with the rate study from a numbers perspective.
Thank you, Mr. Kindle. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I am going to get into the proposed rate adjustments here in just a minute. I won't keep you in suspense too much longer, but before I do that, I do think there's some value in revisiting where we've been the last couple of years. 2 years ago, the City Council did the very hard work of approving some of the largest rate increases that this city had seen in quite a while. Those adjustments were absolutely necessary at the time, and because of them, we're realizing the revenues that we expected to see from that, and those are allowing us to cover our costs and preparing us to meet future capital needs of the city. So it's a bitter pill to swallow sometimes, but that was done, and we're very appreciative of the council for their support of the utilities, the utility operations of the city, and understanding that it's important to have regular adjustments to keep the utilities on a solid financial footing. Just to kind of review where we had been, we had a 12% increase in water in FY24, followed by a 9% increase this current fiscal year. On the sewer side, it was a little bit smaller at 1.5% in 24, followed by a 4% this year. And then we had some rather large percent increases in solid waste at 15%, followed by 14%. Thanks again to the hard work on that. Tonight's adjustments will not be anywhere near those. So, and then the overall bill impact of those was 9% and then 8.4% and just a little above $8 a month for the residential, the average residential user. Okay, so getting into what we're proposing for the next two-year rate cycle, go straight to the bottom line. We're recommending a 5.5% increase in the combined bill for FY26, followed by a 5.1% increase on top of that in FY27. That's a little less than $6 per month for each of those increases. To dive a little bit deeper into the different utilities, if you look at water, and I'll mention that the last time we did this, we were on a trajectory where we thought we would have a higher increase this year or next year for our water utility. But our revenues actually come in stronger, and the Water Services Department did a lot of hard work in kind of recalibrating their CIP and spreading things out a little bit better so that we didn't have to take the hit up front. So because of that, we have a 3.5% change in water for both years. So we'll go from 5184 in the existing right now to 5553 2 years from now. Sewer is where we have a little bit higher than expected increase than what we had thought a couple years ago. This largely has to do with the capital program. We've advanced some projects such as our reclaimed water projects. Advanced water purification has come into the mix, and some of our plant expansions. So some big projects that have been pushed up a little bit earlier in the CIP, and that's largely responsible for that higher than expected adjustment there of 5.8%. Stormwater, Kevin mentioned, that is one of our utilities. We're not proposing any increase at this time to stormwater. We're probably looking at having to look at some adjustments there a couple years from now, so maybe in the next rate cycle, but not this year. And then finally, in solid waste, we were thinking we'd have that the FY26 increase would be kind of like the ones we just saw in 24 and 25, around the 15% number. A lot of that had to do with the fleet building. The cost of the fleet building, due to some hard work by engineering and a lot of people around the city, has come down, and that did help push this rate down from where it was. So we're looking at a 10% increase in FY26, followed by a 8% increase the following year, so 9% change on average. Okay, I know there'll be questions about this. I've just got like 2 more slides to run through, and then we can come back to this and answer any questions you have. We always like to show you how we compare and stack up to other cities around the valley. I would caution that this isn't exactly an apples-to-apples comparison, and it is challenging sometimes to get apples-to-apples calculations. But that being the case, we've done our best to kind of go out and see what other cities are doing. Right now, you can see us down toward the bottom of all cities in the valley, third from the bottom at $161 monthly bill for an average user. With this increase, we do see us going up a little bit and maybe jumping a couple of cities. But we don't really know also what these other cities are considering. They may already have planned increases that they're planning to do, or they may be talking about them. We don't know where they're going to land, so it's possible we stay down where we are, but we could also take a couple steps up. The last time we showed you this a couple of years ago, I think there's been a lot of change in this. Gilbert, for example, was way down at the bottom of this, and they had some really big increases. They're now second from the top. So overall, I would say Peoria is still very affordable compared to other cities in the valley for the quality of the services that we provide. And then along with the rates, we have a litany of just miscellaneous fees in all of our utilities, water, wastewater, and solid waste. These are things like initiation fees, late fees, container relocations, locking devices. They're typically not very big charges. But it is important that we adjust these also so that we don't have to come back in 10 years like we did a couple years ago and jack them up. So we're proposing that we do an across-the-board adjustment to all those miscellaneous fees at the 3.5% change that we're applying to water. And then finally, PFAS is an issue we know is out there. We're sort of awaiting federal regulations on that, but We expect that there will be some impacts on our costs when that happens, and we expect to look at some solutions that maybe are outside the rates, different fees or things that we can charge, maybe similar to our EPA fee that we have currently. And Kevin, I think you wanted to...
Yeah, I did want to just touch on that, Mayor and Council. So the PFAS, this is the forever chemicals, right? And there's 3 chemicals in particular that the federal government has identified and put regulations in place. Those regulations don't take effect for a couple more years. The good news is that, well, we've tested all of our wells for PFAS. We've got one in particular that tested positive a couple of years ago. We've turned that well off. So in terms of kind of a day-to-day impact of PFAS, we're not experiencing it, but 1, we know we have it, and 2, we know the regulations are coming, and 3, we know every drop of water matters to the city of Peoria, and so at some point, we're gonna wanna spend the money to treat that water to make sure it's getting into our system and adding to that. So some of the questions that we're still debating is, you know, how much do we jump in and start looking at this now versus do we wait till it's more of a real and present element? So this is a piece that we have not put kind of a final solution to at this point, but are still keeping that in the mix between now and final budget adoption. So just wanted to make you aware of that and answer any questions you might have or get any feelings you might have towards addressing that now or waiting till it's more real and front and center. So with that, I'll turn it back, and I think we're ready for questions.
Just one last slide, and this is just the kind of timeline of events that will occur to adopt the rates. On the agenda tonight, consent agenda, there is an item to consider a notice of intent. This is a statutory requirement. There's no numbers in that. It just simply says the city intends to raise rates. That has to be adopted 60 days prior to the public hearing and the actual adoption, which we've tentatively scheduled for May 20th. And then 30 days before that public hearing, we have to post on our website a detailed rate report that includes all of our assumptions, and not all of them, but the primary assumptions and calculations that go into how we got to the rates that we're proposing. May 20th will be that public hearing and the adoption, and then if approved, all of these rates and charges would go into effect on July 1st, 2025. So with that, we are happy to answer any questions about the proposed rates.
Councilmember Dunn.
So I have 2 questions, one on water and one on, of course, solid waste, of course.
Of course.
So on the water, I looked at the chart that you guys had there, and it was by water usage. It was kind of a tier. Can you go into a little bit more detail on, you know, like for people at home, like somebody with a small home, like a 1,200 square foot home compared to a business or an apartment built, you know, can you explain the typical usage and how that affects them?
Yeah, so for a typical residential user, what you're seeing in the sample bills are about 10 kgals of usage. If we're looking at a smaller house, you know, that could be half of that in certain circumstances. When we get up into business usage, that varies quite widely. So we can see much larger usage there, just depending on the type of business, you know, if we're talking grocery stores and things like that. Those, though, don't fall under this tiered structure. So that's important to recognize as well. The tiered structure is mainly for residential customers and communication.
And have we always had this tiered structure?
For as long as I know of. I'm not sure when it was put into place. City staff.
great
have
idea.
We've had it for quite a while. I can't remember when we actually went to the tiered structure, but it's been at least 15 years, I would say.
And it's very common in the industry.
And then on trash, I see that we're raising rates. Has any surveys gone to residents, maybe like on, because I know like we do bulk pickup, and that's always kind of been like a thorn in my side because I get a lot of calls, you know, with the bulk on the sides of the streets and, you know, animals getting in it. There's all kinds of things. So like if we took some of those, like how much do residents really value those services of bulk pickup? I do know that some people like it, some people don't. But it does create havoc. Have we surveyed the residents and asked, like, if we kept your rate a little more stable, but eliminate this, or, you know, would that make sense? I mean, have we done any kind of studies even in-house?
I could take that, Mayor, Councilmember Dunn. We haven't done a full survey to that question that you're asking there. Certainly, we've made adjustments to the bulk program. We've had lots of feedback on those adjustments. And generally, we've seen this as a valued service that is in the rate. As you stated, there's some people that value it more than others as we go through it. But overall, it's generally been seen as an important part of the overall package of service. We get some requests for, hey, could you do it more often? So those certainly weigh into it. When we look at the other cities around the valley, they typically offer that service in some form or fashion as well. So it's become kind of an expected service in the package that we've done. But to your point, we have not done a full survey, and that could certainly be something that would be included at some future date. We can use Zen City as an element too to ask that question.
So to Councilmember Dunn's point, like do you have any idea how many bulk pickups we actually do a year?
That might be where I phone a friend. The numbers have definitely ebbed and flowed depending on how we package that service. So I don't know if Rhonda's in the back.
So
there. You wanna come up?
two things. How many total bulk pickup, how many users do we have on trash overall or solid waste overall?
We're about 64,000 accounts.
Okay, so out of 64,000, and then how many of those, so you got that one.
I know where you're going next, and I
kidding.
can give you an
And
old
so
number.
how many total bulk pickups do we do a year?
You know, at one point when I was in Public Works a few years ago, it was about a third of the customers were taking advantage.
Is that about right? Okay, sorry.
No, so
20,000.
Yeah.
So I have said in the past, you know, I mean, I had floated around the idea of, and I don't even know, like, does one part of the city use it more than the other? I don't know. Well, you guys could probably answer that. The second thing is, why couldn't we take a look at some other alternatives, even like passes to the landfill? We don't own a landfill, so everything that we collect, you know, not only are we doing the labor and everything and adding to these fees, but, you know, I mean, landfill costs are going up, you know, the gate rate. So, like, what if we gave, each resident a pass? And then I get that there's an argument, not everybody has trucks, but I'm trying to really look out for our residents to see if we can keep some of these costs down. I mean, maybe it's not as valuable as we think to our residents, if they can save some money, because right now, I think we're being pinched quite a bit. You know, I mean, not, you know, society.
Sure.
So.
Again, I think we can, the services provided in the trash is something that we're always taking a look at. In fact, we're coming to you with a study session about managed competition with that and how that might play a role. But in terms of the actual fee, I think while you see a comparison based on the full combination of all of our enterprises bundled together, trash again for us remains again in that same bottom third in terms of a city-to-city comparison. So we're doing a very solid job of keeping that rate in that lower third of our, you know, peers in terms of total cost. And so we think you're getting a pretty good value for the money. How much might bulk trash move that needle? We can certainly do that analysis to see, but it's not a huge expense, but it is a meaningful part of our service package.
Thank you, Kevin.
Councilor Bullock.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have 4 questions. Is it more appropriate to ask one and then share? I think other council members have questions, or do I just beat them all out?
Let's beat them all out.
Okay. Just want to be fair to my fellow council members. I don't want to.
As a freshman, you only have 2-question limit.
Well, today is my 7th week on the job, so I think I'd like to ask for 4 if it'd be okay. I'll go through these quickly. So in my district, there's going to be, in the future, we don't know how many years, there'll be potentially several large water users, whatever that may be. I mean, it may be an industry, maybe a golf course, whatever. That's beside the point. How much of an effect on rates and infrastructure load and ultimately prices are several large water users going to affect up in the Mesquite district? I know it's a crystal ball question, but again,
Sure.
if you don't change your infrastructure at all, the costs go up just by the replacement costs and the cost for labor, figuratively. If we bring in 4 or 5 large water users, how does that affect the load on the system and ergo larger costs for everybody? Because we are spreading them across everybody. So to be fair to everybody's district, how does that affect us?
Mayor, Councilmember Bullock, it's a good question, and it is one that we look at. There's two parts to that question, I would say, is that one is that, we look at the system as a whole and kind of what is the build-out of the overall system and what fits the overall system build-out. So the reason that we think back to the equity argument that Mr. Kindle made earlier is that because you're looking at the system in its entirety, those costs and those revenue requirements spread themselves pretty well across the city. In terms of a single large water user ordinance or large water user, we have built our system such that that should not have an impact. So in the case of the Jomax district area, the large water users that have been contemplated, we've been primarily steering towards reclaimed water. Okay. So the reclaimed water, the main infrastructure related to that is the pipe that's connecting the Beardsley plant to the Jomax plant. And that's going to be done regardless of the large water user, because we have an issue right now in that basin where the Jomax plant doesn't generate enough reclaimed water to service the golf courses that are already in place. So in the summer, it needs a supplement. In the winter, we don't have a recharge basin in that area, so we're not able to recharge the reclaimed water that comes out of the plant. Therefore, we have a large capital project that is connecting Beardsley and Jomax so that we can move reclaimed water one direction or the other. So then you add a large water user, it really has no impact to that particular district because it's an overall system benefit that moves the water to where it needs to be for the right user.
Okay, I appreciate that. And much more to come on that, obviously, but I want to at least start the discussion.
Yeah, we can get far more into those details.
Yeah, no, but I mean, yes, we've already met, I like to get into the weeds, so I'm the why kid. Second question is, we pay right now, I'm a resident too, we pay, I believe it's $23.15, it's not critical, but a base service charge for my 3/4 inch pipe coming into my house, and I use water, flush the toilet, whatever. That $23 plus charge I get every month, which is the baseline cost, how much of that goes into, in essence, I'm using a term I understand, a sinking fund to repair infrastructure? Because if I'm paying $23 plus a month, that is for, you've already built the infrastructure going to my neighborhood, again, using my house as an example. I keep paying 23, 23, 23, 23. At some point, I've paid for the infrastructure going to my house. Does any of that go into, in essence, a sinking fund to someday replace the pipes on my street? Because that's my first part, because the antithesis of that question is raising rates for infrastructure and replace old pipes. Of course, you have to do that. But am I not already doing that right now? Because there's a capital recovery part of that $23, and there's also I'm paying for maintenance. I got to pay for labor. Someone's got to come out and fix it if it breaks. Does that make sense? There's really two issues there. I'm just wondering, how much am I paying every month that should be going to rebuild, and how much am I paying every month that's actually just covering overhead, insurance, labor, stuff like that?
So Mayor, Councilmember Bullock, this is where I'm probably going to call in our consultant on this
I didn't want her to feel left out, so I purposely asked a complicated question.
It's a good question, and again, it's one that we look at on a regular basis. There's a portion of it that's going to just operation, there's a portion that's going to maintaining the infrastructure we have in place, there's a portion that's going to new infrastructure that must be put in place to just deal with the changing environment associated with the industry. I don't know if we'll be able to give you an exact percentage of one to the other, but I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Tasha to tell her how we put it together anyway.
Thank you, yeah, and I definitely understand the question. It's not as easy as saying, 20% of it, of course, goes into a sinking fund. When we think about repair and replacement with utilities, what we often think about is identifying a certain amount per year that should be funded for repair and replacement infrastructure. Ideally, that's tied to a detailed asset management plan, but in absence of that, we can use some other benchmarks. In some cases, that's depreciation, so annual depreciation levels. We recognize that's probably not as robust as it should be. It's not replacement depreciation, but that's a target. And so, for example, on the water utility, the city of Peoria is funding about 100% of depreciation levels of repair and replacement infrastructure through their rates. Could it be more robust in the future? Absolutely. That's a policy question to consider. But it is a target that we look at so that we're ensuring that we are funding some level of repair and replacement through our rates because it's a true cost of doing business for an enterprise fund. So I know that doesn't give you an exact answer, and it doesn't necessarily even mean that it's funneled to a reserve per se, because there's always repair and replacement going on every year.
No, I appreciate that. And again, these questions we ask, there's no way we can get into the weeds heavily. I hope it spawns other questions and we can meet offline and say, and I can respond back to my constituents, because I would wonder as a homeowner, I'm paying money that for set infrastructure, and I realize that there's overhead, but I need to replace it at some point. But now my rates are also going up to pay for infrastructure recovery and rebuilding. So it's almost like a double hit. And again, I'm not in your world, and I'm an IT guy, but I'm trying to understand this world. To me, it seems like a double hit. That's all. So that's what I wanted to find out. So I appreciate that, and we'll learn more. Sorry. And last thing, because you actually answered two of my questions in one, must be the bow tie. That was awesome. So last question is, when you look at our entire water infrastructure, delivery, everything, where are we at most fear for the future of water delivery, water protection, water availability in Peoria? When we look at what are we at most fear of? And maybe fear is the wrong term to use. We use that in my industry. What are we most at fear of from a cyber attack? What are we at most fear of from a water delivery, preservation, and availability in the future, the next 10 years, let's say?
Sure. Mayor, Councilmember Bullock, I would say, again, from a risk assessment, we're looking at every risk we can identify and trying to put a mitigation strategy in place. In terms of just the water business, I would say the Colorado River remains the high-risk element. We're reaching the end of the compact, and we know new rules are coming eventually if all the parties can get into an agreement. And so because those rules are unknown and uncertain at this time, there's a lot of guessing of what's a possible outcome and trying to mitigate against it. So that's probably what I would identify as our greatest concern out there.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for the answers.
You bet.
I wanted to wait until I was recognized properly.
push your
Thank
button
you. So I don't really have a question. I just was hoping that somebody could explain again, Mr. Burke, you touched on it when you opened up the study session, but to explain to our residents what an enterprise account is.
Absolutely, Mayor, Vice Mayor Crawford. The enterprise accounts is, again, we have particular sectors of our municipal corporation that are run as enterprises in which we are expected full cost recovery associated with that line of business. And so with the water, the sewer, and even within solid waste, we divide that into residential and commercial and say residential needs to pay for itself, commercial needs to pay for itself. And so we budget accordingly. So unlike the general fund and where taxes are paying for things that are kind of more nebulous as far as what person pays for what service or what person receives what service, in enterprise funds you can identify exactly the user of the service is the payer of the service. And so for that reason, we're able to make that a more direct connection and recover that full cost.
Can you go to the reference chart real quick? That's perfect.
This one?
Yes, thank you. So a couple different points here. So are we still kind of, actually go back to the other one real fast on okay, so are we basing individual water usage on about 120 to 125 gallons per person per day, per household? Is that kind of still the number that you guys are?
Yeah, what we're showing you is 10,000 gallons per month.
Right.
Of water usage, and then 8,000 gallons of winter water usage for wastewater.
So go back to the individual water rates. Okay, so.
That's about right.
Go to the next one, if you don't mind.
Oh, sorry.
And we'll go to that one here a second. Yeah, I think you have to go the other way.
This one?
So with the change, it would put us at number 7 or 8. Knowing that Phoenix and Surprise are actually in the middle of this right now and gonna elevate.
To the best of our knowledge right now, yeah, that's what.
If everybody else held constant, we'd
Yeah,
move
my
on.
understanding is Phoenix and Surprise are actually getting, and Henry and I were just actually talking about Queen Creek, like literally maybe a week ago. I mean, they're getting ready to do a giant jump as well. So we would literally, even though we're making this change and trying to hold rates down, we're still going to end up at like number 10 or 11 on this overall process, okay? If you go back to the scaled approach, the 4,000, 0 to 4,000, 0 to, it's perfect right here. So based on this, to smaller homes, like so the 21, 24 is based on 0 to 4,000. Is that how you're approaching this? On the
So that's the
three-quarter?
base charge, yeah. So even
That-
if you use no water, you pay
That's the
21,
base,
24.
right? Okay. Let me see if I had one other. Okay, that's good on that. The next question I had was just to go back on the bulk trash and looking at that. I've never used bulk trash. It doesn't mean that I shouldn't or I couldn't. My wife would probably tell me that I probably need to get rid of a few things, I'm sure. But, you know, overall, we've never used bulk trash. So I think too, not every single user is going to use. Councilmember Finn's over there saying I probably do need to get rid of a bunch of stuff.
I just can't picture you out in the yard trimming the trees.
That's true. That's actually true. Yeah. But that's not bulk trash. That's
Well, there can be. We do a lot of green waste.
yeah, but it's a lot of other stuff. You're right. But but that's a good point. But from the overall aspect of how many people are actually utilizing that in different communities and things like that, it would just be good to actually see the numbers when we're actually talking about this next of like how many actual users, how many repeat users, or do we keep track of that? Do we keep that by account or understand what that is? It'd be good to see from a knowledge standpoint. And that's it. Any other questions from anybody else? All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
At this point, because it's 5:44, we are going to take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to roll into the emergency management component, and then we'll roll right into the council meeting. You guys cool with that? All right, thank you. bring the study session back into order. We are going to move the rest of the study session to a later time, just based on time. And we're going to adjourn the study session, and we are going to start the regular meeting. So good evening and welcome to the Peoria City Council meeting. I hereby call the meeting of March 4th, 2025 to order. Those who are able, please stand for the invocation by Father James Khalif of St. Charles Borromeo Church, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
As we begin this evening, the council meeting, let us listen to the word of God from the book of Wisdom. But you, our God, are good and true, slow to anger, and governing all with mercy. For even if we sin, we are yours, and know your might. But we will not sin, knowing that we belong to you. For to know you well is complete justice, and to know your might is the root of immortality. God our Father, this evening we praise and thank you for all the blessings that you shower upon us. We thank you for giving us your Son, the Word incarnate. In a very special way, we offer this evening the city of Peoria into your hands. We thank you for our mayor and all the council members. Continue to look upon us with your compassion and love, and guide us to be always just in your eyes, and to do always right for one another, for the whole city of Peoria. Thus we may always grow just and true in your eyes, and thus we may glorify your name through our lives with one another. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Beck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Crawford,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Here.
Councilmember Edwards.
Here.
Councilmember Stokes.
Here.
Councilmember Dunn.
Here.
Councilmember Bullock. Here. Councilor Youth Adam Shaw.
Here.
Councilor Youth Tawari.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. If anyone would like to address the council about a matter, please submit a speaker request form, which can be found at the entrance of the room to the clerk at this time. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to recognize a brave member of the Peoria Fire Medical Department, Firefighter Asa Pegway. On February 18th, the firefighter was traveling to work when a cement mixer rear-ended a pickup truck, causing the truck to flip and burst into flames. Firefighter Pigwet had his turnout gear with him and sprung into action. With some of the assistance from Chandler Police Department, then pulled over the driver and brought to safety. Who in here has not seen this video of this incredible opportunity? And with that,
cement truck and then trapped inside her vehicle as it caught fire. Fortunately, Good Samaritans stopped, and as Les Trent reports, incredibly, one of them was an off-duty firefighter who happened to have his gear with him.
A pickup truck is on fire, perched perilously on just two wheels. It happened after the vehicle was slammed from behind by a cement truck. Thick black smoke billows from the vehicle, and rush hour traffic is backed up for miles outside Mesa, Arizona. Then a motorcycle cop pulls up. His first question, did the driver escape?
Did you get out?
The mom is trapped inside as Good Samaritans join in trying to break the window.
Here, get out of the way, get out of the way.
It's all hands on deck as one brave civilian tries to extinguish the fire. The cop pulls out the glass. Suddenly, you see a leg climbing through the window.
Get out.
All of a sudden, the car rights itself and the woman falls back inside.
Get her out of there. Get her out, dude.
That's when a heroic off-duty firefighter on his way to work reaches in and pulls the woman to safety.
Get her out. Anybody else in there? Anybody else in there? No. Get back from the truck. Get back.
Miraculously, she is alive.
Okay, we got you. We got you. Anybody else in there?
The truck is now completely engulfed in flames.
I'm just grateful I was there.
Here is the off-duty firefighter who put his life on the line to save the trapped driver.
First thing on my mind and the only thing on my mind was getting her out of the vehicle, and once we got her out, was getting her away to a safe location.
Wow. What'd she say to you?
She had mentioned that she had just dropped off her kids at school, so she was, very grateful for that they weren't in the vehicle as well.
Anybody else in there?
The woman was taken to the hospital. She is expected to make a full recovery.
Now, I'm just going to say this, and I'm not going to put you on the spot. If you want to say something, you can. But here's the thing. We, the week prior, a couple of us had actually gone through the firehouse and got a pinch, literally a pinch of what it was like to be a firefighter for literally a day. Putting turnouts on and being, near 1,200 degrees in our chest. I mean, you've gone through this so many times. The bravery that it took for you to do this, when I saw this video and I had the deputy chiefs actually sending this to me, I couldn't be prouder. I mean, every single citizen in here, you see it all the time. You see the council, you see every single, you literally I turned to my 16-year-old son and my 7-year-old son and said, that's exactly what I want to grow up to be someday, right? Honestly, absolutely amazing. And really, I know the bravery that he shows. You must be, over just the amount of proud you have to be with this is just incredible. I don't even know what to say it. But thank you. Semper Fi, brother. Thank you. Thank you. You want to say anything at all? Sure. It's up to you. I know he's only had to do national interviews all over the place. So.
Yeah, I never had any media training, so you got to bear with me here. But no, I'm just grateful to have the support from Mayor Beck, council members, city manager Darwin, and also my fire chiefs. So I'm grateful to be here. I'm proud to be a Peoria firefighter since 2016, and I love what I do. And I think it's important to say it's not unique to me. It's the police officers, the firemen every day, 24 hours a day. They're out here doing this job, and they serve here in Peoria, and they do a good job at it. I've worked with them for 9 years, so I'm proud to be here. Proud to be a Peoria fireman. So, thank you.
So, it's honestly, it's a huge honor, and I know Ace is probably exhausted of hearing it, but it is the fire department here has a saying called care for one another. And I saw it firsthand just in the one day of training with the guys and being able to go out there and how they took care of each other, how they provided for each other, and how they take care of each other's families. And it's just amazing to see this actually on TV, and how proud we are of Peoria's finest in this process. So thank you for doing that. So how do you top that? Well, you girls do, right? Right? So I would now like to recognize Mayor Pro Tem Fenn to present the Desert Harbor girls volleyball team for proclamation of recent success.
Thank you, Mayor. Come on up, ladies. Coaches, too. Right up here. Front and center. Glad I wore my boots today, so I don't look so short. Well, congratulations. Yeah. Do we have a captain on this team? No captain? Pick one. Right here? Congratulations, you've been voluntold. So who did you all play to win the championship?
Oakwood.
And what was the final score?
25-23, 25. Yeah, I think so.
Wow, that's close. Congratulations. Nice work. Okay, so in honor of that, we have a proclamation with exactly 6 whereases that I need to repeat. So, whereas the Mayor and Council of the City of Peoria recognize the 2025 Desert Harbor Elementary School girls volleyball team for their outstanding dedication and effort in winning the Copper Conference Championship. And whereas the Sand Sharks won the trophy for the second year in a row, round of applause would be good, yep. And whereas the Desert Harbor Elementary School girls volleyball team prepared diligently and with dedication, demonstrating excellence throughout the season in competition and in the classroom. And whereas elementary school athletics develops teamwork, leadership, accountability, patience, and self-confidence, which helps prepare athletes for life's challenges. And last whereas, the City of Peoria and the entire community are proud of the Desert Harbor Elementary School girls volleyball team for their achievements on the court and in the community. Now therefore I, Michael Finn, representing Jason Beck, Mayor of the City of Peoria, and the State of Arizona, do hereby proclaim March 4th, 2025 as Peoria Desert Harbor Elementary School girls volleyball team. Congratulations. Nice work. Thank you. Yep. Congratulations. 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 This is a lot. Congratulations. 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 Nicely done. Thank you. Thank you. Do we need a picture? Anybody? Yep. Sorry. Photo up. All right, I'm going to stand right in the middle. Is that okay? I'm going to go right here. Just, there we go. Perfect. Got some parents. All parents good? Okay, all right, awesome.
That's funny. I would now like to recognize Vice Mayor Jennifer Crawford to present certificates of appointment for newly appointed boards and commissions members.
Good evening. The following newly appointed board members will be in attendance to accept their certificate of appointment. Hopefully you're all here. As a quick reminder, I just want to mention that these individuals are not compensated for serving our community. They sit on these boards and commissions and, as service to us, and I would like to thank them all for their time. So first, I would like to recognize a certificate of appointment for Vicki Ullery for Arts and Culture Commission. Next certificate of appointment is for David Neeson for the Employee Benefits Trust Board. Is Mr. Neeson here? Yes, he is. And lastly, but not least, certificate of appointment for Emilio Gaynor for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you.
I would now like to recognize city staff to present the AM/PM before and after school program accreditation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Chris Hallett. I'm the Director of the Neighborhood and Human Services Department, and I'm joined by Brian Carrico, our Family and Youth Services Superintendent, and he'll introduce his two guests here shortly. So we're very proud to be here to share with you a very exciting accomplishment that, by matter of background, Brian is the brainchild of the accreditation idea and process and has championed it from the beginning. He began conversations with the accrediting agency back in January of 23, and then starting with that fall in 23 and 3 successive semesters, they've gone through the diligent process and it's not just accrediting the program, it's accrediting 21 individual sites that are independently operated as a child care system. So it's quite an accomplishment, but I'm going to hand it over to Brian since it's his baby, to share with you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Mayor and Council. I appreciate you having us here this evening to celebrate this great accomplishment that's had a lot of hands and a lot of eyes on coming to fruition. And so I'm thrilled to announce that all 21 of our licensed before and after school sites have earned accreditation through Arizona Center for After School Excellence, or what we call AZ CASE. And so they're the one organization within our state that helps regulate quality care for before and after school. And so they helped us work through that process. And the reason we started this and the reason we navigated through this, my apologies, it helps if I show some pictures. The reason we worked through to navigate this is that we felt like the AM/PM program in Peoria has done some amazing work in the 30-plus years that we've been providing care to this community. It was good to be able to work with an organization to help validate that and to help strengthen and improve the care that we were providing to the families that we serve. And so looking for an outside agency to help navigate that process was incredibly important for us. And so it's affirming our commitment to safe, engaging, and high-quality care for the families that we serve. So tonight, we're honored to have representatives from AZ CASE to join us. And they've been crucial in helping us through this pathway to accreditation. And so here we have Courtney Sullivan, the Executive Director of AZ CASE, and then we also have Tamika Cleveland, the Quality and Accreditation Coordinator, helping us out. And they've been a part of every single meeting or every single time that we've started a new cohort or brought in our team to ask questions and through the assessment process, everything. And so they've been incredibly supportive. So I want to thank them for their support to our city and to our team. Thank you so much. And a little bit about what we navigate through. And so AZ CASE uses the Arizona quality standards, and you can see the 7 that are listed above. These are the criteria that we go through, and there's about 10 bullet points under each of these to ensure that we're meeting these, but it's safe and healthy environment, positive relationships, intentional programming, equity and inclusion, family and school and community engagement, program management, and program evaluation. And these rigorous standards allows us to have that measuring stick on the programs that we provide to ensure that we're promoting positive growth to our families and participants while providing a reliable service to our families in need that are working and just need a place to have their kids to go where they're going to be safe, have fun, build relationships, and leave a little bit better because of the time they spent with us. And so as we go through that, none of this is really ever possible without the handful of people, not even a handful of people, but the large team that we have, roughly about 75 to 80 staff that show up in their green shirts to our AM and PM sites on a regular basis. We have some here in the audience to ensure that we're providing that care to the 21 sites that we're at. And so you can see some recognition here of staff meetings and conferences that we've attended, planning sessions, and character development that they provide there on site. And so wanted to take an opportunity to thank the dedication and hard work of our team. A few of them are here in our green shirts. Their program just ended about 15 minutes ago, and so it was hard to get them here today, but a handful were able to make it. So I just wanted to thank you all for your dedication and your commitment to the work that you do every day in our city and the over 1,000 kids that we serve. So thank you so much. Ultimately, none of this is done without the support of our city council and our city leadership to make this a priority to continue to serve and have this service available for our city. Our partnership with Peoria Unified School District makes this possible. And so wanted to thank you again for that ongoing and continued support. And at this time, we'll take any questions you may have.
Now you knew I was going to ask a question. It's actually not a question. I'm going to address our friends in the green shirts here. I formerly served on the Peoria School District Governing Board and actually took advantage of the AMPM program several years ago. And I'm going to say something that's going to probably sound odd to you. You have no idea the positive effect you have on the kids you're taking care of. My kids have all, college and getting married and having kids now and doing what they're supposed to do, bring me grandkids. But they still, believe it or not, remember the effects they had at an incredible experience they had at, ours was Zuni Hills and Lake Pleasant, and also Vistancia Elementary, moved around a little bit in the north area. You don't know. Keep doing what you're doing, because 10 years from now, some kid's gonna look back and go, you kept me on the straight and narrow. You helped me. You were the word, the kind look, the shoulder that kept them on the path. It is there, and you'll have kids someday if you don't now. Sometimes it's this far away between staying on the path and off the path. And I can tell you, your program, the accreditation, what they do, I saw it firsthand in 4 years, and also being as a recipient of that for a year of my life. Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, because you literally are changing our community positively, even though it's a 10-year investment. So thank you very much. I appreciate all you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to recognize city staff to present Neighborhood and Human Services Department Transit Division.
Yeah, so we give Chris Hallett only one meeting every year or so. So he's decided to take full advantage of his time to give us a second presentation on a much different topic, and that's of some new developments in our transit service. So Chris, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Darwin. Again, good evening, Mayor and Council. We're proud to be here to show some transit overview, and you're wondering why is Neighborhood and Human Services here talking about transit? So just last July, was housed up until last July in the Public Works Department, and we had worked with management and the leadership of Public Works, because how many times have you been over to the community center and seen a dial-a-ride or paratransit bus over there? It's one of their top spots in the city that they do here locally. And they're serving the same customers we serve out of the community center, and just the same mission-driven type of work. So we really thought there was some real connectivity between our clients if we brought them over and weaved them into our department. So proud to be here. It's been a steep learning curve, and I thought I'd share some of the things we learned along the way. Since I've been here, we've only been to transit up on the up to the dais a couple of times, and it was about what was hot back then in transit with circulators and whatnot. So we're going to introduce some cool, exciting things to you that we've already started, but we're going to start off with a big overview of just what is transit here in Peoria. And to do that, it's important to cover what are the funding sources that support it, how are those sources used to operate the local transit operations here in Peoria, what are those services that it funds, and then what are some new and proposed services that are trending out in the transit community. So starting with the funding sources, the big one is, this all came out of Prop 400 back in 1985. It's a half-cent sales sales tax funded 20 years at a time for all types of streets, transportation, et cetera. It was renewed in 2004 and again just recently under Prop 479. We'll get into how those funds are particularly spent, but another major portion comes out of our local city transit sales tax. Out of the sales tax, there's a transit portion that goes into a transit sales tax fund. We also get grant funds where we can and capital reimbursement to continue our operations. So on the left side, you can see we spent $3.5 million back in fiscal '24 to run the Peoria-based local transportation. 25% of that approximately is for the staff itself to do it. 11% is capital costs we need to do that, and 2/3 of it comes out of contractuals, which primarily the bulk of that is us paying back Valley Metro, the regional support for overflow and after hours that we can't provide. And then also, it also includes the $500,000 that Mayor and Council approved a year ago that we just instituted the We Ride, which we'll talk about briefly here. And then we're responsible for cleaning all the shelter, bus shelters. So that's the biggest component of that. So again, the 57% on the right one is a revenue source, which is the Peoria transportation sales tax. 11% is that capital comes over and the different funding sources from lottery revenue, et cetera. There is a current $6.5 million balance in that, in the transit fund. This is a slide I stole from Kevin and Sean from Finance. So you may have seen something where they're going through the sales tax. Again, a portion of this Peoria sales tax goes into the transportation sales tax fund, which is the largest one to use to do streets and new streets and rehab them. The second largest portion gets combined with highway user funds and utility sales tax to fund operations and signals. And then the last vestige goes down to the transit fund combined with our regional funds and lottery funds to provide fixed route and dial-a-ride, and that's what we're going to concentrate on here. So our transit division oversight includes the fixed bus route system. We provide liaison. Councilmember Edwards serves on the board of the Regional Transportation Board. Jermaine and I both serve at the technical and management levels. So the fixed route system, which we'll go into a little more detail, those are the big buses, those are the fixed routes throughout the city, the regional part of it. ADA paratransit and dial-a-ride is what we do ourselves here locally. We're also responsible for the infrastructure, that's your park and ride and your buses and the shelters. And then we're the ones help and dabble and introduce the microtransit, which we just rolled out in January, and we have some new ideas that we'd like to share with you tonight. So on the fixed route, the big regional portion, where the Prop 400, 479, so we have two north-south routes. We have 67th Avenue and 83rd Avenue. 67th Avenue picked up 17,000 riders between Northern and Thunderbird. 83rd Avenue picked up 41,000 between Northern and Bell in fiscal '24. Two east-west routes, Peoria Avenue picked up 61,000 of our passengers between 67th and 69th. And the Thunderbird route picked up 25,000 between 67th Avenue and 94th. We have one diagonal route, goes northwest to southeast along Grand. That's where our park and ride is located, right there. They picked up 1,600 passengers during that same time. This is 100% Prop 400, Prop 479 funded. So it doesn't come out of any of our local funds to do this. So this is the backbone of the system throughout the region that we piggyback from with our other transit. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Tremaine. Again, he's our new manager since last fall, right? So when we got transit over here, it was a vacating manager, and we were able to hire Tremaine. He's a real inside guy. He has a lot of experience at the regional level as well as the local, and so he's really helping us really learn it from the inside out. So Tremaine, take it away.
All right, thank you, Chris. Mayor, excuse me, Mayor, Council, thank you for having me here today to present on behalf of the Transit Division. As you see the slide here, we're a small group. I'll just kind of go over briefly each position. We have our administrative admin 2, Pat Mesa. We have a supervisor, Jimmy Denka. We have 7 bus operators as well as 2 dispatchers. As I mentioned, we have a very small crew that covers a very large area to provide the services. The intent is just to provide a high-level overview of the services that we provided. Chris kind of touched on some of the services that we provide. So I'll start off with the ADA paratransit, which is a mixed funding, which is partially of Prop 400 funds in addition to our local transportation sales tax. ADA paratransit, it does require advanced booking and eligibility certification by Valley Metro. Valley Metro is solely responsible for the certification process. Actually, just recently, we just had a mobile assessment here at the community center back in December 6th, where 12 residents from Peoria was able to take advantage of this mobile assessment. Typically, you would have to go down to 44th Street in Washington to do that assessment. Those rides are provided by Valley Metro. There's no cost to the passengers, but they are piloting a mobile assessment. So like I said, several Peoria residents were able to take advantage of that opportunity. A little bit about ADA paratransit. As I mentioned, it does require certification. It is a curb-to-curb shared ride service for individuals with disabilities unable to use fixed route transit. It is federally mandated. Any jurisdiction that provides fixed route and/or light rail service, they are federally mandated to offer ADA services within 3/4 of a mile of said service. We also offer ADA on a regional basis. Those services are provided by Valley Metro. So anything that's traveling outside of Peoria's district would be considered regional ADA paratransit. Again, everything that is handled within the city limits is handled by the staff that I mentioned previously. Anything outside of the limits is handled by Valley Metro and is considered regional. Excuse me. In addition to the regional ADA, they do, as Chris mentioned, provide an overflow service to us as well. With our limited resources, at times, we're unable to accommodate certain requests for transit. So we rely on Valley Metro to handle that overflow service for us. The hours of operation, because it is federally mandated and it's in relation to the fixed route. So we have to mirror whatever the fixed routes are. As Chris touched on previously, we have 4 fixed routes that run throughout the city. So the hours of operation would mirror those Monday through Friday, 4 a.m. to 9 p.m., Saturday and Sunday from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Nextly, excuse me, is the Dollar Ride service. Dollar Ride is a curb-to-curb, reservation-based shared ride service available to the general public. One of the things I would like to point out is there's a lot of similarities between Dollar Ride and ADA paratransit. If you notice the pictures on each slide, we do transport both general public as well as ADA paratransit passengers on the same vehicle. And I think that causes kind of a bit of confusion because typically when you see these vehicles out on the road, especially with Valley Metro, you would initially think it's geared towards specialized transportation such as seniors or disabled persons. But in reality, our Peoria Transit Dollar Ride service does transport just the general public. So anybody that resides, if their origin and destination is within Peoria limits, we can provide transportation services for a cost, of course. The only requirement here is that it requires you to make an advance reservation, 1 day in advance of said service. As I mentioned, it is commingled, combining ADA, paratransit, and general public passengers within city limits. Typically, these services are ideal for seniors, individuals without vehicles, and those needing flexible transit options. As I mentioned previously, it is a reservation required 1 day in advance of the trip. Hours of reservation or operation for Dollar Ride is Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. This slide here, it kind of just represents KPIs and how we're judged in the transit industry. There are several metrics that we're judged by. However, the most important one is the on-time percentage. So to the pie chart on the left, it does show the total trips completed, which includes both ADA paratransit and Dollar Ride services by both Peoria as well as our contractor Valley Metro. So for the fiscal year 24, we provided 23,208 trips. 85% of those trips, approximately 19,500, was completed by us, and approximately just a little over 3,500 was completed by Valley Metro for 15% of the total. To the right on the bar chart, again, going back to the metric, the on-time performance. Industry standard is typically 95% combined. As you can see, us in the light blue, Peoria, of the 85%, 19,000 trips, we completed at a on-time percentage of 97%. Our overflow provider, Valley Metro, the 15%, approximately 3,500 trips that they completed, they completed at a 75% rate. Combined was a total of 94%. So there is a bit of discrepancy there, but overall, we do provide exceptional service to the residents of the city, as indicated by the metrics they have provided. The next slide. As I mentioned before, for FY24, we provided a little over 23,000 trips for the fiscal year. What you'll see here is basically a heat map that shows where those trips originated from. The blue kind of P is indicated by trips that were provided internally by Peoria staff, and the red dots are identified by those that were completed by Valley Metro. Just a point of emphasis, as you notice, the bulk of the trips and the bulk of the service is conducted with the Palo Verde and further south. Again, with 7 individuals, 7 operators, it's a huge area to cover. So we do rely on, as mentioned previously, on Valley Metro. So typically anything north of Happy Valley Road, we've relied on Valley Metro to perform those trips. But this is just kind of just a oversight, just to give you an idea of where the services are provided within the city limits.
And you may notice there's some going to Sun City and some to Glendale. Those are previously agreed upon medical facilities that are allowed within for our residents to reach.
As Chris touched on previously, transit infrastructure. We do have one park and ride. I'm pretty sure we're all fully aware of the park and ride. So park and ride became into existence, I believe, sometime in late 2019. At park and ride, so we are required to keep track of total vehicles. However, it's not an actual count. It's kind of a snapshot. We're required, based on the IGA, to provide information once a week. So it's pretty much a snapshot. And for FY24, we counted a total of 600 and approximately 26 vehicles that took advantage of the park and ride. That number obviously would be, it's a greater number. However, like I said, it's just, we're required once a week. There are a total of 90 bus stops within city limits. All of those bus stops, to council's credit from the past as well, who initiated the process of ensuring all 90 bus stops are sheltered, provide shelter, provide seating and shade as well. Excuse me, and that's reflected by the picture down to the bottom left. And as mentioned, we have 7 drivers. Of those 7 drivers, we have 11 total buses that we operate to provide the services throughout the city limits. So we have 7, and then we have a total of 4 as spares. On to the new service that was just introduced, effective as of January 6th. It is a pilot program. This pilot program, We Ride. We Ride, in essence, microtransit. We Ride is the provider, but microtransit is typically an on-demand app-based ride service. It operates within a specified zone, which shows by the map on here. It combines the flexibility of ride sharing with the affordability of public transit, connects underserved areas to transit hubs and key destinations. One of the cool things about the microtransit aspect of it, it doesn't require an advanced reservation such as ADA Paratransit and Dollaride currently does. You have the ability, or passengers have the ability, to book trips via telephone, via the app, or via the website. Currently, during this pilot phase, hours of operation is Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. As stated previously, this service was just began January 6th, so it's still less than 2 months. So we're still in the data collection phase, but we did submit for an extension for expansion in the FY26 budget, so that will come across the council soon. a new proposed service that we are looking to introduce with the blessing of council is a Valley Metro ran program called Ride Choice. If you think about Ride Choice, just to put it in general terms, Ride Choice is paratransit on demand, for the most, just to keep it simplicity. So Ride Choice is a 24-hour, 365-day program. It requires eligibility, such as ADA. Again, the certification is oversaw by Valley Metro. It is a subsidized transportation program for seniors and individuals with disabilities. It provides discounted on-demand rides through partner ride sharing and taxi services such as Uber and Lyft. It's a trip-based service, 20 and 50 trip monthly allotments. So I'll just go back one bullet. Uber and Lyft, along with other providers. So Valley Metro has approximately 17 to 20 providers within their ride service or ride choice program. So the fact that you have so many vendors competing for services, again, depending on the type of mobility, that kind of drives down the cost of that, in addition to the fact that it is on demand as opposed to a ride advanced reservation-based service. So this is something that we're looking to kind of introduce as a supplement to ADA paratransit. Currently, as mentioned before, we do rely on Valley Metro to provide regional transportation. The thought process is to shift those trips at a higher cost onto the Ride Choice program at a much lower cost, approximately half the cost. So you will see immediate savings in that regard, but it also allows flexibility for the passengers as well, because as mentioned, it is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, whereas the current services are limited to hours and days of the week.
Just to clarify, the cost per trip you see up there, $2 and $3 is to the rider versus the cost to us is $75 per paratransit to $35 to $39. So that's what he meant by half. Our cost is reduced drastically, hopefully improved service delivery with no foreseeable impact to the resident taking the trip.
Awesome.
So we'll be back in the future with that. We had applied for a grant, 5310 for that. So hopefully, depending on how that goes, we'll be introducing this back to council for consideration.
Councilor Dunn.
So I have a comment. My mom used to take Dollar Ride all the time, and when you're serving, the older generation, people with disabilities, sometimes some of the disabilities come with cognitive issues. And, I was aware of one time when they took her to an appointment, got her to the wrong place, left her, and there's 24 hours of notice, and she was stranded, and for some reason, somehow, they got a hold of me and I could go get her. So I'm really glad to see that this is 24 hours a day and there's not a day notice. What other things might you anticipate with some of this and some built-in safeguards for this section of the population?
Sure, Mayor, Councilmember Dunn. So the safeguards in place, so part of the process, and again, I've just been here for a few months now, so I'm still acclimating myself to what we currently have in place. So some of the safeguards I would say that we were looking to install is the fact that there's no passenger left behind, so to speak. That is something that we just actually had a staff meeting and I kind of reemphasized that. So when a passenger is taken to a location, by the time we leave, if we provide the transport, we do follow up with a phone call, just in the event that we didn't do the return trip, just to ensure that the passenger was there. In the past, I'm aware of, if you didn't call, it was pretty much up to the passenger to find their own way home. But, in other places I've worked, that was something that was instilled. Ensure that, the individual is home. Because a lot of times, like you said, some of them have cognitive issues. They'll find a way home, they'll get a family member or somebody to take them home and forget to call to cancel the return ride. And typically that was left, in an unscheduled bin, so to speak. But now, again, staff is now providing that phone call. But for the most part, during the Dollar Ride series, by 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. when the last driver comes in, we do have all of our passengers in. And Valley Metro does follow that same concept to ensure. And again, Valley Metro ADA Paratransit does work until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. So they follow the same process.
Well, thank you very much for what you do and for putting some of these things in place, because it is a very important part to our, some of our communities are, they have more aging people. So it's very helpful, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I have a couple questions for you. So we currently have 5 fixed bus routes, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you explain to us, since I said on Valley Metro, I know that when proposals were put in for Prop 479, which is the future 400, we had put in for, I believe, 3 additional routes. Is that correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Edwards. It's actually 2.
2, okay.
2, yeah.
What happened to those routes?
So Mayor, Councilmember Edwards, so with the conclusion or with Prop 400 coming to a conclusion, transitioning into Prop 479, there's been a lot of discussion on the regional level. Under Prop 400, there was a jurisdictional equity. That equity was divided into subregions, the East Valley and the West Valley. So with the West Valley, they don't look at it as individual jurisdictions' responsibilities. It's combined of all cities in the West Valley. Currently, as we stand today, we have a balance of 100 and maybe 14,000. Due to such low balance and the remaining 6 or 7 months, Valley Metro has decided to put a freeze on any future projects under Prop 400.
So you're telling us that jurisdictional equity did not come into play for Prop 479 when everybody knew full well that that needed to happen? Because when 400 was put into place, that was how many years ago? 25 years ago, when most of the West Valley didn't have much transportation. Right. And I've been sitting on this board for quite some time, and I know we've had those continued discussions that jurisdictional equity has to be a key factor in 479. I want to know why that wasn't taken into account and why 2 additional routes are not moving forward in Peoria.
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Edwards, you're absolutely right. So there are ongoing discussions in regards to that, but I can say, just for clarity, under Prop 479, jurisdictional equity no longer exists. So these routes that we have currently on a fixed route, they will be funded off the top for 479. So there is no additional cost to the city. However, it's no longer a West Valley.
So because I hate to say this, but because the East Valley got what they wanted, jurisdictional equity no longer exists? Is that what you're saying?
Not necessarily. I think that was part of the ongoing conversation from back then when Prop 400 was in discussion, transitioning into 479, was to just bring clarity and clean up. Because, for example, Peoria has 3.7 million as a balance. However, we are unable to use that for several projects because, again, it's not by the individual city, it's based on a subregion.
I understand that, but when you're trying to connect cities from, over the west, because the West Valley is growing by leaps and bounds as well, and so when residents want to come from the west and go to the east, and they don't have reliable transportation, they're using the bus systems or the transit system, so those routes need to be put back in place. So whatever I can do to help, please let me know. So that's my first question. The second question is, when you talked about your transit infrastructure, can you tell us what happened to the, and I don't know how many there were, but what happened to the shade structures that used to be part of the POGO system? Were those repurposed someplace else?
Mayor, Councilmember Edwards, to my knowledge, they were. So we have a yard in Beardsley, right off of the 101. A lot of those shelters and things are placed there. I was just there maybe a month ago because there was an accident and we had to replace one. So there are quite a few in that location. And I believe those were former.
But are they going to be repurposed out on, into the routes to where we offer more shade for residents? And if they're not offered there, can we put them in areas where because we have a shade initiative through the city of Peoria, can we be using those to repurpose there?
Mayor, Councilmember Edwards, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any future use of those, but I can definitely look into it and get that information for you.
Chris, can you put that down to find out if that's something we can take a look at?
So, I mean, we can consider them for future stops.
Yeah, exactly.
If with the new funding, again, back to your original question, the jurisdictional equity goes away with Prop 479. For whoever crafted that, that's how it went out. Off the top, all current routes are fixed. It's all based on ridership and demand. And so anything new, they will have some pilot money under 479 to prove the ridership and the demand before they'll fund any new regional service, such as the fixed route. So we can have these to help replace damaged ones of existing, since all of our stops have them already. Or if that future routes come into play, we'll be able to have some to deploy there.
Okay.
But we'll make a note to follow up on that.
Okay, and then my last question would be on the We Ride. So I see by the map that I see the locations. What are you said you talked about future phase, or is there plans to have it expand to the south? Because looking at the map, it doesn't look like it heads much to the south. What were the determining factors of where the current zones are at?
Our understanding, since we're both new to this, when we inherited it, it was used from census information to determine the highest needs. So that's how it was originally established. That's what we used for the criteria for the pilot. We're going to be using this half year of data we have till the next fiscal year to see how we've already heard some of the same things you've heard, that the needs are outside of the boundaries. So we're already looking into whether we expand the We Ride. So the We Ride is akin to Dial-A-Ride. It's open to the public, versus the ride choice we talked about on the last slide is akin to the paratransit, which we're going to also extend to the senior population. So they're both ride share. They're both kind of the van oriented. However, we're going to really figure out what those demands are. If we can get a pilot going with the ride choice, we're going to figure out where the real demands are, because since they overlap what we currently provide, it may become at our expense. But if it's a better service, we have to revisit the whole transit model to see, okay, what's the proper balance between the on-demand model and what we're providing. So we definitely want to look at that, and if what those needs are they general public needs to the south, or are they the paratransit type needs?
And then the last piece of that, so excuse me, I know that 3 other cities in the West, Avondale, Goodyear, and Surprise, also utilize We Ride. So if a resident in Peoria picks it up in the Ironwood district per your map, can they take that over to Avondale or Goodyear as part of a trip, or do they have to, does that stop at the border and then they have to get another ride in that city?
So, Mayor, Councilmember Edwards, no, currently to get to Avondale, no, they would have to take another means of transport. However, with our neighboring city, Surprise, we do have an existing transfer point so that you can transfer between both cities. And that's located at the DES on Bell Road. It's actually in Surprise, but there is a opportunity to go ahead and transfer from Peoria to Surprise and vice versa.
So how would a resident know that? And I hate to belabor this, but so I have the app on my phone, so there's a We Ride app. Nowhere on that app does it tell me that if I want to go to Avondale, that I would have to do a transfer from a We Ride that I picked up in Peoria and then have to transfer on Bell Road. It doesn't say that. So that's a little confusing for a resident that would want to go to Avondale.
Well, not Avondale, to Surprise.
Or to Surprise. Well, it doesn't matter. Even if I wanted to go to Avondale, all 4 cities, we have We Ride in our cities. And so I'm just trying to see that if I had a doctor that was in Avondale, could I get a We Ride from the city, from the Ironwood district over to Avondale on one trip, or do I'd have to stop in Surprise, take it as far as Surprise will take it, and then pick it up in Avondale, or is it going to go from door to door?
To my knowledge, right now, there is no connectivity from Surprise to Avondale or Goodyear. The only connectivity is between Avondale and Goodyear, and between Surprise and Peoria.
Again, take a look at the app. It
We'll look
kind
at the app.
of alludes that it does.
I thought it said pick up and drop offs within the boundary, but we'll double check with the app provider to see.
I'm just trying to make it as helpful for residents as possible, because they may be under the assumption that they can do that, and I want to make sure before they book a ride that they know they can or can't.
Understood.
Now, mind you, if they can't, that's where our other regional service can be provided, but it takes a day in advance, not on demand.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mayor.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it. We will now move to regular meeting consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are routine in nature and will be enacted in one motion unless a request for removal has been prior approved. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
We're missing, hold on one second. Can- There's always one, it's okay. So we have a first and a second on consent agenda, and we will now vote. It is 7-0, thank you. Lost a contact lens. Seeing there's no new business on today's regular agenda, we will now move to call to the public. As a reminder, each speaker shall refrain from personal attacks or foul abusive language and will maintain a civil and courteous tone, manner, and tone. Members of the audience shall respect the rights of others and will not create noise or other disturbances that will disrupt or disturb the meeting. By state law, the council is not authorized to discuss or take action on any issue raised by public comment until a later meeting. And with that, Pat Lally, am I pronouncing that correctly?
I'm Pat Lawley. I do live in Vistancia, and I am here to talk about the personal human side, not all the things about the water, the pollution, and the unsightly building, but the residents. And I've been a resident of Vistancia for 20 years, and Mark Hammond built and created a beautiful community. And I'm not sure how he could sell this land to put Amcor there. And I understand that in the 1990s, that land, before anything else was out there, was zoned that left it a little iffy on how we could use it. And at this point, I know we need Amcor. That isn't up for debate. But the position of where we're placing it in a residential community is not the correct place for Amcor to be. Is there any and I understand the shovel-ready, a timing issue, they have to get this building started, all of the things that we've gone through. Is there any other place, and I'm thinking like where the airport was supposed to go, is there something shovel-ready close to it? The residents do not want it. I don't want it. And I just think that we need to be looking, before it's too late, to find a better location for it to be.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Alan Rideau, sorry.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I appreciate the opportunity to speak again. I just want to reiterate my appreciation to Pat Lawley, because I think she represents the views of just about everybody. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of us that could be here tonight, but they're not. Probably just as well, but he'd be overwhelmed. But there's an awful lot of interest, and we still hold out hope that somebody will find a way maybe to convince, and maybe it's not you, Mr. Mayor, or any of the council people, because I think you'd probably support us if you felt you could. I think Matt Bullock has done what he can to talk with Amcor and try to convince them, that there's a lot of concern in our neighborhoods. And I want to thank you, Matt, for your efforts. But somehow or other, somebody somewhere here might be able to find a way to get someone within Amcor to grow a conscience and or become aware more of a possibility, even if it was just moving that plant 1,000 feet or a couple thousand feet further away from the development itself might help. So anyway, still want to hold out hope that we can make something happen. So anyway, thanks for everything you're all doing. I know you're listening to us. Second subject, in regards to the water rates, I'm a retiree, happily for 10 years. I live in Vistancia. I know that you're considering water rate increases and things like that. I'd also like to ask that the council and Mr. Mayor, that you consider the impact that it's going to have on your community of retired folks who are living in, on fixed incomes. So if there was something that you could do in your planning towards that probably inevitable end of raising rates to protect some of our senior citizens from the impact of that, because we're living in some pretty tenuous financial times already. It's not looking real good. So if there's anything you can build into the plan to put protections in there for some of the people, and you have quite a large retired constituency, I'd hope you consider that. So that's just a request. Put that in your bonnet, see if you can do something about it. And thanks for letting me speak. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Thank you for your comments, sir. Steve Riggins.
Mayor, Assembly, thank you for the opportunity to talk, and I appreciate it. My name's Steve Riggins. I live in Vistancia. I've been there for about 5 years. Love it. Arguably, probably the best planned community in Arizona. It's a lovely place. My background's about 40 years in manufacturing. I've been responsible for moving plants, building plants. Maybe the biggest one was 300,000 or 400,000 square feet. This project, the MCOR project, is 10x that. It's a monster. It's a great deal, I think, for MCOR. I've looked at the documentation. You guys have given a great deal. There's no way they're going to change their mind because it's a sweet deal. All I know is it's the wrong place for that plant. If I had a plant that size, there's no way I would put it in a bedroom community next to a school and residents, because it would be a liability to the company. Because one of the things you look at site selection, what are the risks to the neighborhood? You don't want to get sued, if you have a release, because it will be a air and water discharge. It'll be within EPA limits, but you're going to have discharges. And they've got hazardous material. It's quite a facility. It's a beast. So my thing to you would be the same thing that my other residents here said, is I plead to you to look for another location. I know it's a critical company for the U.S. It's a great, I think, plum in your, a feather in your cap to have it in Peoria, but it's the wrong place, absolutely. To put this in a basically retirement bedroom community. We were kind of hoping for a movie theater there, maybe some restaurants. Amcor is probably not our first choice. I don't think it would be your first choice to have in your backyard where you're going to have kids going to school. And a plant that size is going to be a mess to put together. There's going to be dust, there's going to be trucks, and it's going to be right next to a school. And it's just not something that a planned community wants in their neighborhood, and it doesn't make sense to be there. It should be in a green field somewhere. I actually looked to move a plant to Phoenix, and it was 300,000 or 400,000 square feet, and it was go into a green field where there's nobody there that you can bother. So that's kind of the thing. And this is 2.5 million. It's heavy. It's processing. It's chemicals. It's gas. So I just hope that you guys could maybe help figure out, because it's going to be you guys. Amcor is not going to want to move. It's a sweet deal. So it's going to be you guys that's going to help us out, and we'd really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Connie Ecker.
Connie Ecker. I've lived in Vistancia for 13 years and then just moved to Trilogy in Vistancia about a year and a half ago. I understand the need for Amcor in the U.S. and was very proud of TSMC as it was being built. Proud not only of having a chip factory here in the U.S., but proud of the job that our government did by placing it where they did. It seemed to be planned quite meticulously and proficiently. Now fast forward to Amcor. The planning of this facility was the direct opposite of what we see with TSMC. Why in the world did our mayor, our council people, and our city officials of Peoria think putting this factory in the middle of a planned community was a perfect plan that benefited all, especially the residents of Estancia? Your constituents, the people that voted for you, believed you, Mayor, when you said you cared about your people, all of your people. But since you have become mayor, thousands of North Peoria residents have never felt so ignored, invisible, and insignificant with regard to our issues such as the airport, Paloma Park, and now Amcor. It is my understanding that the majority of residents in Vistancia and our surrounding areas feel this way. So please, I ask you, it's not too late. Hear us now and stop this from coming to our community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Sandra Fox.
Good evening. I'm Sandra Fox. I've lived in Vistancia for 16 years, very happily until now. I'm in my mid-80s. I have spent 65 years of my life as a nurse practitioner concerned about the health and the well-being of my community and working for my community. There are several questions that I have that I know you can't answer publicly, but I'd like some information, more than has been given to us. I want to know about the chemicals that are being used by Amcor and what are the conditions of the emissions, who is going to look out, who's going to oversee, what are the rules, how much can they admit, why do we have to have this near our schools and our children and our elderly? The other thing that concerns me is the police and fire departments. What kind of a strain is it going to put on our community if there is an incident at Amcor, which there are always incidents in big industrial complexes, and somebody within our community of Estancia or Trilogy needs ambulance service or paramedic, and they're busy with Amcor? What happens to us? I'm very, very upset by how this was handled, of the lack of information that has come to the community. It has come late. It was not there. It was like airport, 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 Amcor's down here. It was like we were so involved keeping the airport out that nobody paid attention to Amcor. In closing, I just want to repeat some of the words that were said in the prayer before the meeting started. Let's do right by each other. Let our mayor and council please do right by the people of Estancia. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Chris Ecker.
Hi, guys. I'm Chris Ecker. Wife, husband, that one over there. I don't, and generally am not involved in what is going on, but as a former civil engineer working for a municipal government, I know some of the ins and outs that are going on. I forget the gentleman's name, sitting over there in the Water and Transportation. I'm told that at a previous meeting, when asked what chemicals that they were going to be using, Amcor, that what they would be using to wash these chips, that he couldn't answer it. But yet at the same time, Amcor, as I understand it, has 2 other facilities not within our area, and he couldn't answer it. He knows damn well what chemicals they're going to be using. And the topic of PFAS come up. From what I understand, there is no black system that they can actually filter this out. And as such, it's going to go into the water system. And the thing is that why wait for the federal guidelines on how to handle the PFAS? It might be 10 years from now, 8 years from now, and we will already be introducing some of these PFAS into our water system. I'm not going to say that they're going to grow a third eye, but the thing is that if these things cannot be filtered out, then they should be controlled, contained, and removed from sight. I'm not a big fan of the size. I think we got duped up in Vistancia. Originally, they was said to be, 54 feet high and 100,000 million feet. But now it's going to be 112. Has anybody been up to the Vistancia area? We were complaining about the 4-story assisted living that was going in there a couple of years ago. Now it's going to be the equivalent of a 12-story building. Go up there and see what a 12-story building is in somebody called it a bedroom community. Okay, and it really is. It's a lovely place to be. We've been there for about 14, 15 years. We come out of New York. But the thing is that people, we place our trust in you people and your guidelines, your building department. I think it was, one of the ladies said it might have been done in haste. I strongly suggest that you go over the building permit and the acquisition of the building of the property itself with a fine-tooth comb, because anything that goes wrong up there, you're going to be liable because you have a footprint and a hand in all of this. Thank you for your consideration.
For your comments, sir. Ted Brower.
I really enjoyed being here today with the presentation from the athletes and the students. It was a nice piece of America. It was a lovely piece of America. I don't understand why this dirty part had to be brought in. It's totally unnecessary. You have miles and miles and miles of open space. You don't have to do this. It doesn't have an advantage. Let's take care of our people. These people have come here, and they deserve to be given the consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Kevin James.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for hearing me this evening. This was just a luck of the draw. I came to this meeting to talk to you about ride choice, and I did not look at an agenda, and then I found out ride choice was part of the deal. So I'm glad they're working on that. I am here to tell you I'm retired Metro bus driver, and I'm a retired city council member, so I will be real brief. And I can give you a personal example. The independent living where I live has a bus that goes to doctor's appointments within a range. That's great. I take We Ride to dialysis 3 times a week. That's perfect. The way I got here tonight was with ride choice because some of those boundaries are eliminated, and I'm able to be here without relying on anybody else. So I guess my ask of the council would be if there's any opportunity for community input. I wrote my name on the sheet there,
maybe you could hand me off to a staff member as things go forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Don McCartney.
Hi, Dawn McCartney. I wrote it down this time because I'm here once again. On behalf of the residents, families, and children who will be directly impacted by Amcor's 2 million square foot semiconductor testing and packaging facility planned to be built in the Vistancia community. Let's be honest, this isn't just another business moving into our neighborhood. This facility will operate 24/7, introducing constant noise, industrial traffic, and environmental concerns. And these environmental concerns, and I know the gentleman brought it up about the chemicals. Mr. Darwin, you were at our meeting the other night, and I'm grateful for that, but you shared these toxins will be emitted into the air, but you also shared they'll be safe. How do you know they'll be safe when we don't even know what the chemicals are that are going to be used according to what we have been told? Nothing has been shared with us yet, but yet you're giving us your word and that the EPA will ensure that it's safe. I don't understand how that could be said and how you could be confident in your saying that. What I also know is this neighborhood was designed for families. This is being placed next to homes and to a charter school where children will learn and play. Imagine the impact of the round-the-clock truck traffic, the hum of the industrial machinery, the potential emissions, and how that will alter what we deem to be an incredibly peaceful, safe environment that we all invested our hard-earned and retired dollars into so that we would have a home that we could afford to stay in until we leave this earth. Beyond the disruption of the facility, it will consume 1.9 million gallons of water daily at a time when water conservation is more critical than ever. Yes, I know it must recycle or reclaim 85%, but that still leaves an enormous strain on our local water supply. What I ask is why? Why here? What if something happens to go wrong like was shared? Where do we go? Where do we evacuate to? The other thing that scares the hell out of me is our property values. Who wants to buy a home next to a 112-foot story-high, 2 million square foot facility that's deemed an industrial site? This is a master planned community built with the vision that does not include industrial grade noise, light pollution, and increased risks to public safety. The stakes are too high and the cost, both economic and environmental, to the residents are too great. There are more appropriate locations for this facility, including what was just announced, this TSMC, and their announcement of $100 billion being invested in Arizona. Since Amcor stated they're building this facility for that particular location, then why can't we consider finding a location off of our neighborhood property that might work more in line with where TSMC is going to be? We ask you and we urge you, as the families that are living there and voted for many of you, please do not approve the submitted plan that is before you for Amcor. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Doreen Powers.
So I think I'm good. I'm Doreen Power. I live in Vistancia as well, and I'm going to talk about Amcor, but I'm going to go back to the vote because that's kind of where or how we got to where we are right now. The Amcor vote on February 20th, 2024 was based on misleading or incorrect information. Some might even say it was based on lies. Prior to the vote, at the same presentation, the economic development manager said Amcor would be 50 feet. Deputy City Manager claimed 4 more times it would be 50 to 54 feet high, actually saying it is not a 100-foot high building like TSMC. Not only did our Mesquite District Council member ask for the height to be confirmed, but even Willow Council member specifically asked again to confirm the maximum height, and you said, I do not want to see the height of TSMC. And again, it was confirmed. The site plan is in the 50-foot range. We will not have a TSMC equivalent. Were we thrilled about that? Not exactly, but I think we could have worked with that. Clearly, this was an important factor that multiple council members and the public were concerned about. It was irresponsible, or was it intentional, to vote based on what Amcor just said it would be? Either zoning should have changed, or the agreement should have included protections requiring Amcor to abide by the details in which the council based your votes on. This was a mistake when negotiating the land agreement, and now North Peoria is facing a 118 feet high, 2 million square foot factory using undisclosed chemicals and million gallons of water, creating pollution and waste in our neighborhood. Ironically, the only thing that may not be increasing is the good-paying jobs. Instead, Amcor is actually suggesting they are automating more, likely to hire less people. Does that support the goals that it was originally founded on? Why are council members not angry that they cannot trust what they are voting on? If you're not angry, ask yourself, should you be? You guys all voted based on information that was told to you that was not true, and there was no protections to make it so. Are people being complacent? Could it happen in your district? City leadership pats themselves on the back for creating an amazing deal with Amcor with provisions to protect the city, but have failed to protect residents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, ma'am. Shannon Semo.
Hello. Please don't start my time yet. I filled out 2 papers. Am I allowed to speak twice?
Just get one.
Just get
Just
one
one,
time?
yeah.
Okay, because there was nothing in the rules. So, I'd like to see, or at least ask, everybody's covered. I was going to talk about Dolphin Heiress and then the policy group that you guys have lobbying in DC on our behalf. That was, I believe, 140 grand was spent on that, and then I found out that everybody's going to a conference in DC. I'm not understanding all of that, and I'm not really sure why we're lobbying to have regulations changed on Amcor's behalf to make sure that this deal goes through, and I didn't see anybody advertise it or talk about it in a meeting, so I'm a little confused by that. I'd also like to bring up the fact that I met with Mayor Edwards and I asked him about the aquifer situation. When I asked him about the aquifer situation, he acted like he didn't know what I was talking about, so I made sure to send him information on how aquifers work. I also asked if there were aquifers within the area of the proposed Amcor site, and he told me no, but there is. There are aquifers that exist because the entire Phoenix AMA, including Peoria, sits atop a regional aquifer system. The West Salt River Valley Aquifer underlies northwest Peoria with the groundwater levels historically ranging from 100 to 400 feet below the surface depending on local pumping and recharge. When I asked about if any of these chemicals or anything could be accidentally leaked from one of these tanks, because if you think about it in Arizona summer and you have chemicals like sulfuric acid, give me just one second, arsenic, hydrofluoric acid, phosphine. There's also silicone that's etched off. So any of these things could possibly leak. I understand that these are stored in underground tanks, and we have very hot summers and the ground stays quite hot. It's an accident waiting to happen. Going back to the aquifers, the Peoria stores cap water in aquifers. 42% of its supply comes from cap with recharge basins like those near Vistancia, ensuring groundwater availability. And the aquifer also provides a buffer against the Colorado River cuts. So there are water aquifers in the area. I'm not sure why I was told that there isn't, but there is. We depend on that water. We pump a lot of groundwater in the state, and if, God forbid, something happens, That's going to affect our groundwater, and I just hope everybody's thinking about it. But again, I'd like to understand why we have lobbyists in DC who don't even live here trying to get things to happen, and that's disappointing that we spent that much money on it. Thank you.
Dan O'Brien.
Good evening, Mayor and councilpersons. Dan O'Brien, and I live in Vistancia at Trilogy. But my background, I've spent my career in planning, zoning, and development. And I've worked on several general plan updates. And the aspect of doing a general plan update, for those who have been through the process, is to identify complementary uses and how they should be going together. And I have to tell you that when I saw what was going on here at 5 North, I was shocked. I don't know how it made it through a general plan update with that kind of zoning, provided for. It is, to hear what people have been saying is not an exaggeration, and to understand what the uses are, where you go everywhere from a charter school, which is abutting the property, to multifamily and apartments that are abutting the property that is going to be used 24/7, trucks moving in and out. This is a safety issue. It is an annoyance issue. And I can only express that for years to come, if this goes through, people will be studying the Peoria zoning on this property as the textbook study of what not to do. I urge you to take a very close look at this, because something is not right. Something is not adding up quite right, that this would go as far as it did and to be where it is right now. I tip my hat to all the residences that have shown up. I think they've shown a great deal of restraint. I know they're upset. But more importantly, I think as a result of them being here, you've gotten a great cross-section of information as to what people are thinking about. If you need to take this very, very seriously. I've watched some blank faces, but I've also watched some curious faces. So I hope that all of you are taking it very seriously. And once again, I applaud all the information that's been brought here before you tonight. And I hope that there is something that we can do to ameliorate the situation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment, sir. Mr. John Forsyth.
I'm going to read the judge's opinion from the surprise city council debacle, because both Uback and Darwin have interrupted my speech. He called it objectively outrageous. But he continued to say, no branch of any federal, state, or local government in this country should ever attempt to control the content of political speech, which you have done to me. I want to read you another definition. A blistering, mean, or predatory person who, from a perceived position of relative power, intimidates, abuses, harasses, or coerces people, especially those considered unlikely to defend themselves. That definition is of a bully. You bullied me, you bullied this council, and now, to be honest, you're bullying the people. We're all talking about it. Almost 20,000 cities exist in this country. 90% of those cities are bedroom communities. They exist without heavy industry, and they're financially stable. It is you that is bringing in industry into our bedroom community. You're bringing the city to the suburbs. I've talked about, last time I spoke here, you bullied the employees. We never gave you permission to treat our employees badly. Get in line or resign was a mantra. Now, we have had some employees resign. They've gone to lesser cities like Avondale and Buckeye. Goodyear. Art Miller went to Goodyear. What a shame. Art Miller or Judy Smith is going to be our next mayor. Well, let's talk about Vanessa Hickman. She's the ex-city attorney. She was suing you for defamation. You tried to get her fired from her new attorney general job. Fortunately, because of the 7th Amendment, you have to have damages. You were just incompetent in getting her fired. Speaking of the AG, Kathy Carlet had 0 investigations from the AG's office in 8 years. You've had multiple investigations. Graduating Brophy, you do know quite a few people. The airport, it's finally being reported as hugely unpopular. But that didn't stop you from spending millions of dollars and thousands of staffer hours to try to get a project off the ground. It was never going to be. Let's talk about the helicopters. Yes, plural. Every military in this world will tell you helicopters are for losers because they're expensive. City of Scottsdale got rid of their 2 helicopters. Now, you're trying to bully the fire department to get a second helicopter because the first one isn't big enough. They don't want a helicopter. They want additional safety equipment. They want to protect themselves. This council is going to get a vote on this fire helicopter. Now, you're going to have to vote one of 2 ways. You're going to vote yes to protect a narcissistic ego, or you're going to vote no to protect the men and women that protect the citizens of Peoria. It's going to be your choice. I'll see you in 3 weeks.
It's always a special moment. Now recognize City Manager Henry Darwin to give his report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I just have a couple of things to mention this evening, or a few things to mention this evening. The first thing is something I mentioned, I don't know if it was the last meeting or maybe the meeting before, but on February 25th, Peoria Economic Development partnered with Local First Arizona to produce a free small business owner workshop at the Rio Vista Recreation Center. We had 10 restaurant owners and other food entrepreneurs learn how to rethink their menus to maximize profits. Future sessions in this series will be held and announced through our website. I also want to mention a pretty significant accomplishment of our Peoria Police Department. The City of Peoria is proud to announce that our Peoria Police Department has officially achieved accreditation through the Arizona Law Enforcement Accreditation Program. This happened on February 26th. This prestigious accreditation is valid for 4 years and signifies the department's commitment to upholding the highest standards of law enforcement practices. Congratulations to our police department for this important achievement. I also want to share this evening plans that we have in place for renovating and updating this space here. The project is expected to take about 6 months. We'll have alternative space to hold our council meetings during that renovation. And we have a short video here, I think, to show you just a brief overview of the changes we're planning for these chambers. as we, Mayor and Council, as we discussed during the workshop, we're going to try to schedule the renovation to coincide with our normal summer break and to minimize any disruption, but there will be a period of time where we'll have to find another location to hold our council meetings in the summer. Then lastly, I wanted to show yet another video regarding some special events that we're planning this spring. Thank you, Mayor and Council. That's my report for the evening.
Thank you. Reports from youth liaisons. Sarah?
So the Youth Advisory Board hosted Youth Government Day last week, I think the end week of February, and we had 8th graders come in from 24 different schools. And in the afternoon rotations, we had 2 different activities. One was for the 8th graders to come into council chambers in here and participate in a mock council activity, which myself and Manya hosted. And then this just gave them a general overview of what the council does. And then we also had a panel in the amphitheater where the kids could go in and ask Youth Advisory Board members questions. Thank you.
Manya.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So building off what Sarah just talked about, that was the second part of Youth Government Day, but for the first part of the rotations, we had split all of the students up into these groups where they got to attend presentations from different Peoria city departments, and they were paired up in groups of 2 together, so they had the chance to each see 2 departments present. And I think overall we got some really great feedback from the teachers and the students, and I'm glad to say that we had another successful Youth Government Day this year, or days because it was 2 days. But yeah, thank you again, Mayor Beck, for coming at the end and speaking to the kids. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. So Mayor's report. So last week I spoke at the Youth Government Days on both of them. It was extremely impactful listening to a lot of the questions that the kids had to ask. I think we're just going to kind of go right into that next year and just let them have a longer period of time. Some of the best questions and some of the most observant part of our society is definitely the 8th grade group that was actually here the last 2 cycles. So it was pretty awesome to actually see that. Join us on Wednesday, April 2nd, at 6:30 p.m. at CCV for the 2025 State of the City Address. I'll be sharing important updates about community progress and future, and dinner will be provided from Postino's. It'll actually be provided by me, by Postino's. From Postino's, since I'm paying for it. We will also be hosting a State of the City at City Community Town Halls on Wednesday on April 9th at 10 a.m. at Westbrook Village, and one on Monday, April 14th at 6 p.m. at night at the William P. or El Patina Community Center. And then next up, I think we got to do it since little levity doesn't hurt. So I've asked, when we first came in, I asked for freshman photos to be taken. So I asked for freshman photos to be taken because I figured that would be great to actually start. And this is how the freshmen decided to pose. So I think it's appropriate for today. So, all right. So we try to add a little levity to the overall piece. It was for the children. It's for your grandchildren. So, and now we're adjourned. Thank you.